So now that we have our lead list, the next thing we want to do is create our copy. And this is the act of copywriting. So it's creating emails that get replies. The reason why this matters is because if we don't do this right, we won't get any responses. The best practices that I have after writing over 700 campaigns is to be short, relevant, and try and share some personal and relevant information to them. From there, what we want to avoid is long, salesy emails and ultimately the ones that lose attention after the first few words. You want to think about it like this: we're sending a more professional text message and we're not sending a brochure. Four core principles that we want to abide by: we want to make sure that our emails are relevant, they're concise, and that they're very clear. In terms of relevance, we want to let the prospect know, why are we reaching out to them in the very first place? An example of this is, hey, if we saw that they have a job opening on their company, we could use that as relevance, saying, hey, I saw that you're hiring for this role. If you think about it as a company or a business owner or as a manager or director at a company, if someone starts an email with that subject line, if it was a recent job post, you could think like, hey, like that's very timely, that's very relevant. Chances are they will continue reading the following sentences. From there, you want to make sure it's very concise. If you start sending whole paragraphs in an email, chances are you're going to go lose a prospect's interest. You want to send 3 to 5 sentences max. I've tested it, it's what works. And then finally, you want to be very clear with what the next step could be. If you ask 3 or 4 questions in one single email, you're confusing the prospect. You want to be a guide so a prospect could essentially follow in a very clear line what you want them to do next. So if you say, hey, do you want me to send you more information that covers this specific topic? Let me know. The prospect will reply with yes. Then from there, you could send an email providing them with more information. Now, for a structure of a cold email, there are 6 main components to it. There's a subject line. This has to be one of the most crucial aspects of an email, because if we don't have a very clear and attention grabbing subject line, simply no one will click on our email, no one will read our email, and then they won't be able to reply. From there, the opening line, I typically think, is the second most important sentence. Is we want to make sure that it's very personal and relevant. From there, our body is typically the context that typically provides a little bit more information about who we are, how we could help them. And then the CTA is called a call to action, where it's one clear step that they could take directly from the email. A signature is just letting them know where they could find us if they want to do some research on who we are, our company. And then we could also use a PS line. This could sometimes add a bit of personality to our emails. So jumping into subject lines, what works is you want to make sure that your emails are under 44 characters or under 44 letters and spaces. The reason why is if someone is on their phone and it's more than 5 words or 44 characters, they won't know what the email is about if you go longer than that. So if you keep it very concise, typically 2 to 3 words, you'll be able to convey what the message is about. You want to make it casual. I don't use any emojis or anything like that. And you want to make sure that there's congruency between your subject line and your actual email. Because if you have a very clickbaity subject line and then the email is about something completely different, you might upset a prospect and then they might report you as spam, which will then impact deliverability. Some examples that you might be able to use is you just use a simple quick question email. You could use, hey, I had an idea for Connor.com, or saw your recent job post. These are all examples of subject lines. Now, once you create a good subject line, you're then going to have to create your hook. If the opener isn't strong, no one will read the rest of the email. And you want to focus on relevance, not just random garbage AI personalization. For example, hey, I saw that you were running this technology on your site. I'm curious if you've ever ran into slow page loads. You want to avoid sympathy personalizations like, hey, I saw on LinkedIn that you really like dogs and I really like dogs too. By the way, buy my $50,000 software. If you attach the name of the dog and you make it very personalized about the dog, but you're also selling like a $50,000 software, what you want to avoid is sympathy personalization. For example, if on their LinkedIn it says, hey, I have a dog named Becky and she's my right hand woman or right hand dog, you might be able to get replies, but it may not be business oriented replies. It's typically going to be noise in your inbox, and they're not the ones that actually drive the needle in your business. So always try and stick to business problems instead of just reaching out with garbage AI slop. When it comes to the body, there are a few ways that we could slice and dice the body. We could keep it really short. We could share case studies. We could talk about their pain point. We could talk about a desired outcome. And you want to make sure that this is between 1 and 2 sentences. So for an example, if I'm reaching out to an e-commerce company, I might think about, hey, if we have a tool that we could put on their website that makes their page load faster, we might be able to say, hey, I went on your website. It was loading a little bit slow on mobile. I was really curious if you experienced this as well. I helped company A, B, and C do this, and they were able to get their website loading speeds down to a second. That's all that we have to say for the body. We're not at the CTA yet. Now, for the CTA, we want to make the ask feel very, very, very light and easy to say yes to. So, for example, using that same example, the e-commerce website where it might be loading slowly, instead of saying, "Hey, by the way, do you want to chat over an hour and just absolutely bore yourself to death about our software, how it costs $10,000 a year?" What we might want to do is the following. Hey, do you want me to show you a quick Loom video I put together of how between mobile on Safari versus mobile on Chrome that they're loading at different speeds? More than happy to let you know what I'm seeing on my end. Do you want me to send over the Loom? Probably something a little bit more concise. I'd have to wordsmith it, but you could see the orientation that I'm taking the CTA. I'm not asking them for something massive, trying to provide value with the prospects. So that's what we could do for the CTA. Now for the signature and the PS line. One thing we want to do is we want to make it very clean and I typically like to avoid links. If you want to add your link, feel free to. It might impact deliverability. You don't typically want to add any types of photos because that's going to make the email heavier. You want to keep your emails light and concise, and adding a few photos won't help you. Now, when it comes to the PS line, what you want to do is typically you could add in an extra detail about your body or about your relevance, or this would actually be a good opportunity. Using the same example about the dog named Becky, we could say, as an example, hey, by the way, growing up, my right-hand partner is Coco. I don't know if we should introduce Coco and Becky. Just like some very cheesy joke, but I would use that PS line as the way if a prospect was on the line about replying, having a cheesy line or having an extra line in the PS line could sometimes be what will ultimately motivate the prospect to reach out to you and reply to your emails. So I've seen good success with PS lines. Or we could make sure that, hey, we're letting them know that if they don't want to hear from us again, we could just say, hey, by the way, just let me know if I miss the mark. I'm more than happy not to reach out to you again. And those are ways that we could set up our signature and then our PS lines. Now, in terms of common frameworks for cold email, these are a few. You could talk. There's ADA, there's PASS, there's the 3-line email framework, there's the before, after, then their bridge. And typically what I like doing is using a common framework, using this as a base, and then switching my email copy as needed. So what that would look like is sometimes what I do is I like using this relevance value CTA framework, and I'll start an email with, hey, why am I reaching out to you in the first place? What type of value can I provide to you? And then finally, what's a very easy way for a prospect to say yes? Yeah, we don't have to overcomplicate things, guys. Feel free to think about one of these frameworks and then use them in your email campaign. Now, whenever we're using AI to create copy for us, one thing that I like doing is I'll always try and get AI to make an email more concise, or saying, hey, ChatGPT or the AI model that you're using, give me 10 variations of the subject line, and then you could pick 2 to 3 to test. You could also say, hey, make this sound more human and make it readable at a grade 5 reading level. Most people that we're sending emails to, they can't read at a postdoctorate level. Chances are, if more people can actually read our emails and there aren't any complicated words inside of them, we'll be able to get more responses as a result. And we could use AI to do this for us. So I want to have a quick check in here. Why is the subject line the most important part of your email? And for the hint, or really this is the answer, but if people don't click on your email from your subject line, we want to be able to automate the sending. So we're going to go talk about that next. I'll see you there.